I'm really happy today to be speaking to Mark from Wolfburn. Mark has perhaps got one of the best jobs in the world. He was a policeman for 30 years, retired, moved back to Scotland, where he actually came from, the very village where Wolfburn is. And he's now working for them and travelling the world, being a global ambassador. Mark, welcome to Clandestine Whisky.
Brilliant, David. Thanks very much for the invite. You know, as you say, local boy done good. So I can't get the best job in the world.
Oh, it's absolutely superb. Obviously, the last sort of year's been your travels being curtailed, but to be there and then just sent around the world and just meeting friends and introducing Wolfburn to new markets must be an incredibly satisfying job for you.
Yeah, it's what we say. If you pitch up to anybody, whether it's a pub, a restaurant, or a show, if you've got whiskey, you're bound to create some excellent friends, and you can create them very, very soon. As soon as that cork gets popped and the drams start getting poured as well. So, ideal opportunity.
And it's a lovely story as well, because Wolfburn existed in the 1800s. Then was it in 2013? So the voyage of discovery happened again, where the idea was planted, perhaps to reinvigorate the distillery.
Yeah, we're 200 years since the first Wolfburn distillery. It started in 1821, and the original Wolfburn distillery, took its name from the water source, the Wolfburn, the small natural stream or spring that rises in the moors at Thurso. And then, that lasted on and off for about 50 years. And then in 2011, our owners decided on a whim, let's build a whiskey distillery. How do we do that? Let's search the internet and let's ask people. So that's exactly what they did. They were in a great position to do that. So planning permission went in 2012, in late 2012, Forsyths of Rothes, famous still makers, built our entire distillery from scratch, and we first went on spirit on the 25th of January 2013, Burns Night. A piece of marketing genius. That's the first cask that we filled and stowed in our warehouse on site.
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic, and the location isn't actually one of the largest peat bogs in Europe or the world.
Yeah, Caithness, the county, is Europe's largest peat bog, and we're trying to get UNESCO World Heritage status for that because of the history and the flora and the fauna as well. But Caithness is flat. It's desolate. The trees grow at an angle because of the wind. It howls, and we're right on the sea, right on the coast. At the back of the distillery, you go back out onto the next field, and you're looking out over to Orkney, and you can see Dunnet Head on the right hand side, the most northerly part of the British mainland, because Thurso's the most northerly town on the British mainland as well. And you're right what you're saying. I was born and bred up there, so I've got some fond memories of picking mushrooms at the distillery. When it wasn't a distillery, it was just like fields. Like me and my dad used to go up there. So everything that I'm doing for Wolfburn, it's in here. It comes from that passion and that memory and that affinity I have for the north as well. So yeah.
Tell me about the peat. Is it a different peat than you find? Is it sort of a forest-derived peat, or is it like Isla where it's more the sort of the grasses? Is it a unique peat to your area?
It's probably it's not the big sort of iodine hit that you would get on Isla, but the sort of the peat farm, shall we say, it's still taken out, and whether it's used for heat, because the original Wolfburn distillery in the 1800s, peat would have been the source of heat and energy back in the day. So it's always nice to have a connection to your past and a connection to your history and your heritage as well. Even one of our expressions, Morven, our lightly peated expression, it actually rises. Morven's the highest peak in Caithness, and it rises to just over 700 meters, but it overlooks Caithness. It overlooks the peat bogs and the peat fields. So again, it's lovely to have an expression named after the sort of highest peak in Caithness. And anywhere in the world you can look at that and you'll immediately think of home as well.
Ah, fantastic. It's an intriguing story, actually. How to do whiskey. I mean, it's every whiskey lover's dream, isn't it, to have their own distillery. To actually go and do it, obviously, it requires vast amounts of backing or your own financial means. But I'm particularly interested because Shane Fraser from Glenfarclas, came on board. I'm very interested to know, how he was persuaded to come to a new distillery, and also was he involved in the design process?
Yeah, in 2012, when when the planning permission went in and we were looking for a master distiller, it's like anything. You get an opportunity if you're working in a distillery, and you get an opportunity to say, "Come on, let's go somewhere else, and you can make your own spirit. You can have your hand in this brand new build." What person wouldn't bite your hand off for that? So Shane was involved in sort of late 2012, and the great news for us, Richard Forsyth had just taken over Forsyths, the famous still makers in the world. So he was wanting to sort of put his stamp on the company as well. And Richard had an idea of two stills, a wash still and a spirit still, that he had drawn. There was a longing for him to make these stills, but nobody ever wanted them. So when he started talking to Shane and the bosses, it was decided, no, let's go in for it. You make your stills, you make the stills that you've always wanted to make, and we'll make the spirit. So yeah, it was a great piece of, I don't want to say luck. I want to say that the planets aligned when the sort of the build and the production was being set up. And Shane stayed with us since 2012 to 2019. Shane left to go to the United States. It was a dream for him as well to build a whiskey distillery and to live and work in the United States. So he's now in upper state New York. But the good news is that the Fraser family, he employed his son Charlie in late 2016. So Charlie is one of he's our shift supervisor, basically our distiller, and he's 5 years in to his journey as well. So it's great being able to pass that knowledge down between sort of generations as well, in true whiskey fashion as well. It's generations upon generations, and we're just starting out. So there's a long way for us to go yet.
Absolutely, I mean, very, very exciting times. Is there anything particularly unique about the stills?
Everybody will say that their own stills and their own process is unique. But for us, I was asked by a nutritionist in New Zealand when I was doing a gig, what's the one thing that makes your whiskey unique? And I stood in front of the audience and I was scratching my head and I was trying to think, is it the mash? Is it the barley? Is it the location? Because everybody, you in the wine industry, you talk about the terroir, you talk about everything involved in the production has an effect. And I said to him, I can't pinpoint one thing. I can't give you that sort of golden nugget of why our spirit is our spirit, our DNA, our essence. And he said, no, that's the right answer. Because if you come back to say it was the mash or the distillation or the maturation, I would have shouted bullshit. And I was like, oh, well, I'm quite happy that I've came up and I've been quite honest. Yeah. Because there's nothing worse when you're standing in front of an audience and you're trying to answer a question. You might not have the answer that's like 100% correct. So you don't want to start feeding them small snippets, because it just sounds that you're winging it. But yeah, for us, being an independent distillery where we are, north of Scotland, we mature everything on site as well. So our dunnage warehouses, the sea air that whips in from the Pentland Firth, and because Caithness is flat, the wind howls, it really does. We're surrounded by gorse and heather and farmland as well. So we want that outside environment to affect our spirit. And all our bottles that you'll get in your hand are all hand bottled. Everything that we do is done on site. Why we do that? I think, we keep our standards very high. And as soon as you involve somebody else in your production process, you start to worry about what their standards are, what their ethics, what their morals will be. You know, it's not just pounds, shillings, and pence. For us, if we do everything ourselves, we know that that product is going to market in the best vehicle and in the best state possible as well. So our unique spirit, it's flower, you know, it's sort of quite floral, quite fruity, long fermentation times. We don't fill the stills to capacity, so there's a lot of copper contact there. It's light and vibrant. And hopefully, you know, it's just a case of getting the liquid to the lips and letting the consumer decide. You know, we want to grow this wolf pack, the community of Wolfburn, and it's just about letting the consumers try it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, on trying it, obviously you want to get as much as possible, but how does that correlate? Because obviously you want to have aging stock as well for the future expressions. Are you in a position where you're not being controlled by the accountants and you can actually, yeah, we're going to lay down 50,000 litres this year? What's the situation at Wolfburn?
Yeah, our production is only about 120,000 litres a year. Now, Diageo maybe could do that in a day with all their distilleries. But for us, it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. And no disrespect to any of the big whiskey producers, the big whiskey factories. We're running the stills Monday to Friday. We're doing 6 mashes, or we're doing in some weeks we're doing 8 mashes, especially in the winter time. So it's a very small operation, but you're right. It's about getting that balance between what we make and how much whiskey we produce and how much we want to keep aside for future releases as well. You mentioned accountants there, and the bean counters, and a lot of companies, yeah, they're controlled by the people that have the power of the calculator or the power of the abacus. Charles, our accountant, what a great guy. You know, he's been at the distillery. He visits the distillery all the time. He's in the bottling hall. He's helping doing the bottling as well. Everybody at the distillery mucks in and does everything. So there's a great atmosphere, you know, family atmosphere. We're all doing it for the same good. And we've got a big sign at the distillery above 2 old Caperdonach washbacks. One's our effluent tank and one's our spring water tank. We try not to get them mixed up for obvious reasons. And it says, "Fortune favours the brave." So every time that you come through the door, you look up to your right and you see this big sign. And that's, you know, that's our work ethic. You know, you put your heart and soul into your work, you'll get the rewards. If you sit on your backside and you hope things will come to you, you'll never get anything in life. So you've got to put the effort in. You've got to put the effort in. So Charles, yeah, Charles, he likes to think that he's got some clout, but it's a group discussion, and he has a voice, shall we say? He has a voice.
And how is he must be very unhappy that, you know, the duties with the US have just been dropped for 3 months. Have you seen an influx in orders from your distributors over there?
Yeah, Pacific Edge, our US distributors, we actually sent 5 pallets out just at the tail end of last year, just before the 25% tariffs were announced that they were going to be sort of put on hold for 4 months. So again, you know, it was just at the right time, at the right, you know, at the right location that they decided to order when they did. And you know, the same went for, I suppose, our European distributors as well, because before Brexit, you know, Brexit kept getting pushed back, and a lot of our European distributors were trying to get their orders in before the Brexit deadline, just in case there was going to be extra charges or extra levels of bureaucracy, shall we say, as well. I think I'm catching that frog that you've got there, David, as well. So that frog must be travelling.
Yeah, sorry, it's come over there. Yeah. Globally, there's a number of whiskey distilleries, you know, going to be coming in production in the last, you know, next 3 to 5 years. Quite a saturated market. Obviously, being Scotland, what a perfect opportunity. But it's always struck me that there are certain market segments which are being very underrepresented in terms of whiskey. As a former sommelier in a Michelin-starred restaurant, you know, we never sold whiskey. I mean, hardly ever. And the only whiskies we actually had were your bog standard ones you'd find in the supermarket. What do you think can be done to break into restaurants and actually having sommeliers really recommending the whiskey beyond the sort of obviously the big hotel bars which do have a mixologist who can advise?
Yeah, it's it's an excellent question, David, because this is where we want to see our product. It's a premium product, a premium single malt Scotch whiskey. We want it in the best bars, the best restaurants, the best places in the world. And how do we do that? Price points got a lot to do with it, because again, the accountants involved in these companies, they'll look at what the profit margins are. So again, it's about how you realistically price your product. But for me, being a people person, it's about let's go to these places. Let's speak to the buyers. Let's speak to the people in charge. Let's get the liquid to the lips. Let's actually give them a tasting, because they know themselves, and you'll know, being a sort of trained sommelier and the experience that you have, there's nothing better than having a taste of a product that you want to put in your shelves, because then you've got supreme confidence in it. You know what it's like. You know the history, and again that terroir as well. You know the legend that it comes from, and the more that you know, the more confident you can be when somebody looks up at you and says, "Would you recommend a whiskey?" And then instantly you can say, "Well, what do you like? Do you like something sherry oak? Do you like a non-peated? Do you like something lightly peated? Do you want a cask strength?" And then if you've got like the option of our 4 core range that we have at the moment, that's all the bases covered. And it means that you're being able to advise the customer. You're being able to throw in a few stories as well, or where it is, the location. Oh, this is the most northerly whiskey distillery on the mainland. It's from Thurso, and it's amazing how many people have connections up that way, because we used to have a naval base, sort of early warning station type thing, and we've got the first fast breeder reactor, Dounreay, as well. So we had an influx of people from across the world to live and work in Thurso for these industries as well. So it's amazing how that story of the North gets across the world. But going back to the whiskey, it's about having a confidence in the product, and the only way you do that is about getting the liquid to the lips and getting the story out there as well. So yeah. It's a challenge. It's a challenge, and it's a challenge that I will willingly accept, sir. I will take that from you.
Absolutely. And as a winery, they have a lot of room for experimentation. Obviously, you've got the oak barrels, but also in their inoculation in the yeast. Obviously, as a whiskey distillery, you're using second, third fill barrels. Are you experimenting with small barrels from other areas, from Hungary or from Australia, perhaps, which have held fortified wines, or Sauternes in Bordeaux?
We have, when you go into our warehouse number 1, 2, and 3, we've just building warehouse 4, and we've got warehouse 5 coming up as well. So when you go into our warehouses, there is an array of different sizes, different oaks and different woods. Sherry oak, whether it's butts or whether it's hogsheads. We've got some, our bourbon casks are sourced. We try and get the best casks we can. Everybody will say that as well. But our wood management policy, it's like, I describe it as you're on the football field and you score a goal, and your teammates put them on their shoulders, and they take you around the ground at the end of the game because you scored the winner. This is what our wood management policy has to do with our DNA and our essence at Wolfburn. We don't want it to overwhelm our spirit. We want it to raise it. We want it to proclaim our spirit as well. So we've got some beautiful rum casks. Last year we did our first ever finished whiskey. We did our batch 155 that came out last January, and that was 5 years in a first fill bourbon cask, and then we did 6 months in a Fonseca Ruby Port hogshead as well.
Oh, nice.
and it was absolutely stunning. You know, even the color, it was like a luscious pink, the rosy hue in your glass, and it was something completely different that we've ever done. And it was mesmerizing to see it in a glass and in the bottle as well. And then later on last year, we did a Madeira cask finish as well. But in the distillery, we've got octaves, we've got butts, we've got puncheons, we've got pork pipes. We like to experiment, but the trouble is, in a whiskey distillery, your experiments aren't let's just try it and let's just taste it. You've got to wait, you know, at least 3 years if you're going to be calling it Scotch, but you're going to have to wait that wee bit longer depending on the size of the cask. Like some of the casks, the quarter casks that we use for our Northland and our Morven, just about 120 litres in size. They're ex-Isla casks. And the great thing for us, using a smaller cask as a young distillery, that maturation is more intense, but it's also a faster maturation as well, because the spirit has more contact with the surface area of the wood. Yeah. And for us as a young distillery, it gets our product to market that wee bit quicker than putting it in a big sherry butt and leaving it for 7 or 8, 9, 10, 15, 20 years. Because for 3 years, we had no revenue coming into the company whatsoever. We didn't do gin, we didn't do vodka. So Shane and Ian Kerr from Glenlivet, the only things that they were doing were making spirit Monday to Friday and stowing it in the warehouse for 3 years. We didn't have the big fancy visitor centre. We still don't. You chat the door and you're into the belly of the beast. That's us. And that's the way we want to roll as well, because it's not about smoke and mirrors. It's about, this is the process. This is what we're trying to stand for. We didn't want to do gin and vodka because we didn't want Wolfburn to have, another name. When somebody says Wolfburn, we want that to be synonymous with a quality single Scotch, a quality single malt Scotch. So we don't want it. We don't want the visions to be blurred with any vodkas or any gins or that. So yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question. I went off in a wee.
No, you have, yeah, and I actually think so. Obviously, it comes from the burn, but again, yeah. as a sommelier, one barrier that I always found for people ordering wines is they were not entirely sure of the pronunciation, which can be said for many Scotch whiskies. And I still actually have trouble. So actually, what is the correct pronunciation? Isla, even, the region. Wolfburn, simple, everyone can say it. So I think I love that. And I love the modernity of it as well, and the way it should be. And I think also as a new distillery, you've done 110 expressions now, and it's just amazing. They just sell out. I know that, reading on the website, you've had ones which were sold out in minutes, but this year, I think your website actually crashed due to your Valentine's Day bottling.
Yeah, we've got great success. Last year, we decided to go our own way, and we decided to sell direct from the distillery in the UK. So anybody that wants Wolfburn, they can come direct to the distillery. You can go into the shop, you can order it, we can send it out. We did our Valentine's Day edition this year, and it was, we're a victim of our own success, David. I think that's the best way to describe it. But when the website crashed and then we had to put something out to say, we'll look at it, we'll try and get it sorted, come back tomorrow. We did that, came back tomorrow, crashed again. And then we had to go to manual orders, emailing orders back to us as well, which was a logistical nightmare. However, I'm glad to say we've upgraded our servers now. So we've got all singing, dancing servers. The test will be, we have a Kilver release, which is based on the sort of the rune alphabet. There was a sort of burial stone found in Sweden, and it had 24 inscripted letters of the rune alphabet, and we've used one for every expression that we've done. So Kilver 8 will come out next month. Last year, Kilver 7, sold out 3 hours 50 minutes, and it was just short of 1,000 bottles. So this April, we'll be sitting round with everything crossed when Kilver goes live on our new Carlos Fandango server. You know, the best that we can afford and get, and hopefully everything will be smooth.
I'll make sure I get one ordered.
You know, that's exactly what everybody says. It's good because you create a wee bit of a frenzy. You create a wee bit of a want and a push for your special products. But the great thing about our range as well, you know, you entice people with the core range, and you get them, you know, you get them used to your style of spirit. You know, it's light, it's mellow, it's quite smooth, it's easy drinking. You know, nothing that our spirit will give you. It's not like a hot poker going down the throat. You're not going to get that burn, that retch. You know, I always describe it, and I get slated for it, but I describe it as a rolling tear, just rolling down the cheek, just a lovely warm descent, just going down. Yes, we want to put a fire in your belly and a smile on your face. You know, that's what Scotch does. But we want to give it the consumer experience rather than just that. Wow, that's just hit me hard and it's burnt. You know, it's burnt my throat. You know, everything that we do, it's going to be nice and gentle and warming, and hopefully, you know, taste and flavour's got to do, you know, with everything for the consumer as well, and that's where we put it at the top of the list.
Yeah, and the amazing things, of course, you know, people are lapping up your whiskies now. They're only going to get more complex as time progresses as well. So, an absolutely exciting, you know, future for you. I know you, Prince Charles visited you a little while ago, and had a few drams. I'm very interested to know, have you received any orders from Balmoral since then?
No, we haven't. And you know, the north of Scotland, we've got a great tradition with the royals, because the Castle of May, just outside Thurso, was the Queen Mother's residence.
Ah.
So even you know, even as a child, and I'm going back maybe 45 years, you know, the Royal Yacht Britannia used to come in to Scrabster. You know, the launch used to come in. The royal family used to sort of drive through Thurso to get out to the Castle of May. You know, and I can remember being at the side of the road, you know, waving the flags and trying to look in to see who's visiting as well. And you know, we've had all the royals up there, and the great thing about that is when they're up there, they have to be supplied food and drink. So you'll find that a lot of the, you know, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, whatever you want to say, has, you know, that by royal appointment crest on the outside of their shops as well. So when Prince Charles came to visit us, July 2019 it was, I had just flown back from South Africa. I'd been doing a gig out there, and we all lined up, and he came in and he met us all, and he came up to myself and he says, "Oh, you're the ambassador?" I says, "Yes." And he looked at me and he says, "Well, I do like a man who still waxes his moustache." And I says, "Well, by royal appointment, I will continue to do it, sir. I will continue to do it." But you never know. He filled his own bottle. The Duke of Rothesay, as his Scottish title is when he's in Scotland, and he did everything. He filled his bottle. He put the oak cap on, the cork, the tin sleeve, and the label. He did every part of the process. But the best thing is, then he bought the bottle from us as well.
Ah, fantastic.
So it means that, you know, that relationship, in 3 or 4 years, you never know. Wolfburn might have a by royal appointment at the side of their side of our distillery. And again, you know, from a marketing point of view, especially for the you know, the United States or the Asian markets, you know, that's an instant draw for a lot of people as well. So yeah, watch this space.
Yeah. Okay. Just wrapping up, Mark. I'd love to know, because you know, whiskey, like you, to me, is about people, and I think the same with wine as well. I think, you know, tasting notes a little bit boring and mundane a lot of the time. It's about the experience, and I'd love to know, do you have any recollections of any tastings that you've done where people have been just absolutely blown away by the whiskey? Have you got any stories to tell on people's first encounters with Wolfburn?
You know, I love being at a show or a festival. and the roll-ups are behind me, and people will walk past and they'll be looking, and that's an opportunity for me to sort of throw out the hook and see what I can catch. And the best thing for me is somebody coming to the stand or somebody coming to Wolfburn that knows nothing about the brand. And the way that I do it, you're right what you say. It's not just about what is the tasting note, how old is it? It's about the immersive experience of taking a whiskey from somebody and having a conversation as well. So I'll find, unfortunately, that a lot of people will hang about the stand so much because they just want to listen to me talk and they want to hear the stories, and they obviously want to drink whiskey as well. But if somebody walks past the stand and like turns their nose up, or they'll come and say, "What's your oldest expression?" And of course, our oldest anything at the moment is 8 years, because we've only been in production for 8 years. And I'll say, well, don't have an opinion on it until you taste it. And then once you taste it, I'll be quite happy to listen to your opinion. But don't turn your nose up. Don't, there's a wee bit of a challenge there for me, because I'm exactly the same. I'll not have an opinion on something unless I've experienced it myself. So getting these people, virgins, to the Wolfburn stand and allowing them to taste the spirit, and I just sit back and I just see their mind and their the smile. And as humans, sometimes we give away our joy and our rapture that we have about something. We don't have to talk about it. The facial expressions, the way that the body sort of demonstrates their joy and their love for something. It's apparent that you just see them and they just look at you and go, "I'm completely blown away. I didn't expect that." And I'm like, yes, that's it. That's the feeling. So rather than, I suppose, pinpointing stories, there's a more, like, I've got sort of more of a holistic approach that I just want people to experience the brand and come to the brand for obvious reasons. We're wanting to sell our whiskey, but we want to give them that experience. And when they hear the story that we're independent, there's only 15 people in the whole company, we're in the far north, we're doing everything that we can. A modern and efficient distillery, but we're trying to do it the traditional way. We're not chill filtering, we're not adding colour, we're hand bottling everything on site. And you just see them thinking, well, that's a tick, that's a tick, that's a tick. This is a really, really good distillery to get into. And the great thing is, when people come to Wolfburn, they're drinking our first expression. So in 10, 15 years from now, they can kick back and say, I was there when that first distillery opened and I was tasting their first expressions. There's not very many distilleries you can say that you were there at the very beginning. So yeah, that's the challenge for Wolfburn, and I'll relish that challenge.
Yeah, I remember I was, taken back by your whiskies. I think I actually met you 3-4 years ago. I think it was a whiskey show, the press day, press morning at I think it's Royal Artillery Company or something like that in London. And, I just basically, I'm not very good at writing, I've done it my life as a wine writer. And I now take things that I like, I take a picture of with my phone. And I think I took 4 or 5 pictures of that day. And you're in one of them. So, I was, taken with your whiskies, evidently so.
That's what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, bookmark ones. Yeah, I need to explore this further. Now, Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to chatting to me this morning. I really appreciate it all. And I'm hoping to get up to the distillery very, very soon and may see you there if you're not gallivanting around the world somewhere. But yeah, just thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, David. We'll have the doors open and we'll have the red carpet out for you. It's a small bit of red carpet, but we'll have it out none the same. So yeah, thanks very much for the invite. And if anybody has any questions, jump onto the Wolfburn website.